Cockroach! Cockroaches can lose their heads and keep walking like nothing happened. It sounds impossible, but it's true. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. If you remove the head of an American cockroach, Planeta americana, it doesn't die right away. Instead, it can continue crawling around for about a week. A human would survive only seconds. Most animals last only minutes. The cockroach finally dies, not because it lost its brain, but because it can't drink water without its mouth and eventually dies of thirst. So how is that possible? Unlike humans, a cockroach doesn't rely on one central brain to control its entire body. Its nervous system is divided into small clusters of nerves spread throughout each body segment, allowing many basic movements to continue even without the head. It also breathes through tiny openings along its body called spiracles. So breathing doesn't depend on its head at all. And because its blood flows through an open body cavity at very low pressure, it doesn't bleed to death like larger animals would. People often think cockroaches survive because they're nearly indestructible. The real reason is much stranger. They simply don't keep most of their essential body functions inside their head. Praying mantis. The male praying mantis is one of the few animals that can keep mating, even after losing its head. It sounds unbelievable, but it really happens. During mating, the female will sometimes bite off the male's head. Instead of stopping, the male often continues and can even mate more effectively. The reason is surprisingly simple. The movements needed for mating aren't controlled mainly by the brain. They're driven by a separate cluster of nerves in the abdomen. Normally, the brain helps regulate and limit those movements. Once the head is gone, that control disappears, allowing the mating behavior to continue even more strongly. Many people believe the female always eats the male after mating, but studies in the wild tell a different story. Researchers found that this happens far less often than laboratory videos suggest, with fewer than 1/3 of mating encounters ending in cannibalism. Nature created an insect whose most important reproductive actions don't fully depend on its brain. For the male praying mantis, losing its head doesn't always mean the end. Sometimes it's the moment its body finishes the job on its own. Chicken. A rooster once survived for 18 months, even after most of its head was cut off. This wasn't a legend. It really happened. In 1945, a farmer in Fruita, Colorado, tried to prepare a rooster for dinner. The axe removed most of the bird's head, but it accidentally left the brainstem and one ear intact. That tiny piece of the brain made all the difference. The brainstem controls essential functions like breathing, heart rate, and basic reflexes that keep the body alive. A blood clot sealed the wound before the rooster bled to death. Its owner then kept it alive by feeding it with an eyedropper directly into its esophagus. The rooster, later named Mike, didn't just survive. He gained weight, traveled around the country, and amazed crowds before finally dying 18 months later. Most chickens only flap around for a few seconds after decapitation, and sometimes reflexes can last a couple of minutes. Mike was completely different. He wasn't truly headless. That small piece of surviving brainstem was enough to keep him breathing and alive, making him one of the most extraordinary animals ever recorded. Sea star. Sea stars don't just survive without a head. They were never born with one. They have no head and no brain, yet they can do something that seems impossible. In certain species, a single detached arm can grow into an entirely new sea star. Break off one arm, return it to the ocean, and after several weeks, that arm may begin rebuilding the rest of its body. Instead of one animal, you could end up with two. So how does that work without a brain? A sea star doesn't have one central control center. Instead, it uses a ring of nerves around its mouth, with a nerve cord running through each arm. Each arm can control many of its own movements, allowing the entire body to function without a head giving commands. It's almost as if 5 separate parts are working together, each able to take over when needed. Nothing is completely dependent on one location. Nothing is truly irreplaceable. You can't decapitate a sea star because it never needed a head in the first place, and sometimes breaking one apart only creates another one. Hydra. Hydras may be tiny, but they possess one of the most extraordinary survival abilities on Earth. Smaller than a single grain of rice, this freshwater animal has no brain at all, not even a simple one. Instead, its body is controlled by a loose network of nerves spread from top to bottom. And that's only the beginning. If you cut a hydra into several pieces, each piece can regenerate into a complete new hydra, growing a new mouth, fresh tentacles, and an entirely new body. Even a brand new head is rebuilt as if nothing ever happened. The secret lies inside its cells. Around 80% of a hydra's body is made up of stem cells, constantly replacing old tissue with new tissue. Scientists who observed hydras for years discovered something astonishing. Their chance of dying didn't increase as they aged. While most animals slowly wear out over time, hydras show almost no signs of aging at all. For a hydra, losing its head is barely a setback. It simply grows another one because no single part of its body is more important than the rest. This tiny creature reminds us that sometimes nature's greatest survivor isn't the strongest. It's the one that can endlessly rebuild itself. Ribbon worm. The longest animal ever recorded isn't a blue whale. It's a ribbon worm. Most people have never even heard of it. A bootlace worm, Linnaeus longissimus, once washed ashore on a beach in Scotland and measured more than 180 feet long, longer than any whale ever documented. Imagine a bowling lane. Now imagine an animal even longer than that. Despite its incredible length, this slimy worm has another unbelievable ability. Certain ribbon worm species can regenerate after being cut into pieces. Even a small fragment from the middle of the body can grow into an entirely new worm, complete with a new head and a new brain. For most animals, losing the head means the end. For a ribbon worm, it's simply another body part that can be rebuilt. Its cells already know exactly how to replace what was lost. An animal longer than a blue whale, yet capable of growing a brand new head from just a tiny piece of itself. It's proof that in nature, size isn't always the most astonishing survival trick. Sea squirt. Sea squirts are the only animals known to eat their own brain. It sounds unbelievable, but that's exactly what happens as they grow up. A young sea squirt begins life looking like a tiny tadpole, complete with a tail, a light-sensitive eye, and a small brain. It swims through the water, searching for the perfect rock or surface to call home. Once it finds a good spot, everything changes. It permanently attaches itself and never swims again. The tail is absorbed back into the body. Then, the sea squirt does something almost impossible to imagine. It digests its own brain. Most of its simple nervous system is broken down and recycled for energy, leaving only a small cluster of nerves to control its basic functions. As an adult, it spends years quietly filtering seawater for food. Why get rid of its brain? Because once it no longer needs to swim or search for a home, that brain becomes an organ that only wastes energy. Instead of keeping it, the sea squirt simply recycles it. It's one of the strangest examples in nature, an animal that doesn't lose its brain by accident. It willingly eats it because it no longer needs it. Planarian. Planarians can lose their entire head and grow a brand new brain within days. These tiny flatworms, easily recognized by their arrow-shaped heads and two eye spots, live beneath rocks in streams and ponds. What makes them extraordinary is their incredible ability to regenerate. Cut off a planarian's head and within just a few days it grows a completely new head and a fully functioning brain. This is possible because its body is packed with powerful stem cells called neoblasts, which can transform into any missing tissue. Scientists pushed this ability to the extreme. In famous experiments, they divided a single flatworm into hundreds of pieces, and many of those fragments regenerated into complete new worms. But the biggest mystery came afterward. Researchers trained planarians to perform simple tasks, then removed their heads. After the new brains grew back, the worms often behaved as though they still remembered the training. That surprising result suggests some memories may not exist only inside the brain as we usually believe. A creature that can grow a new brain is already incredible. A creature that may keep its memories after growing a new brain. That's one of biology's greatest mysteries.